think I'm cynical about this franchise. Victor Kerfman, a longtime listener, wrote to me after yesterday's show, which was about my conspiracy theories as to why Bubba Chandler and Connor Griffin each just magically got promotions within the past week. And Vic writes to me, I just got an email that answered why Chandler and Griffin got promoted. The renewal invoices for the 2026 season tickets were just sent out with a small percentage increase. This is almost 3 weeks later than last year. Now, of course, we were actually sniffing the playoffs at the beginning of August last year, so they tried to capitalize on it, and they held off this year until they finally had to create some good news. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. Comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Believe it or not, I'm not about to continue that line of conversation. It is what it is. They are what they are. But let's turn instead to the future, the near-term future. And by that I mean who the next general manager might be. Now, this comes up on occasion, and it should also from a cynical perspective, because the same owner who chose Ben Cherington over Matt Arnold, the guy who's now beating the universe in Milwaukee, happens to be the same guy who will make the next hire as well. That's disconcerting. But you know what? If you're a fan and that's a killer for you, that's also disqualifying because the owner's not going anywhere. Bob Nutting's not selling. So you either hold out hope for the best on this front, or, you just find something else to do with your free time in the summer. Now, before I get started here, I'm going to disappoint in advance by saying that I'm not about to throw out any names. The reason for that is I'm in communication with people who see themselves as candidates for such an opening, and the last thing I'd want to do is hurt them by blurting out their names, especially if they're actually not one of the people I'm talking to. So I'm just going to leave names completely out of this. I will say to you that there are immensely qualified people for this position in Pittsburgh, specific to Pittsburgh, even if Major League Baseball's economic model does not change, although I believe that it will when the existing labor agreement expires. There is one trait, however, that I'll share that I would value if I were Nutting above all others. And no, wise guy, it's not who can save me the most money. I said if I were Nutting. In parentheses here, that's not just a talking point, by the way. His last two GMs have just so diligently and borderline robotically gone along with certain things that were aimed specifically at lowering payroll, end parentheses. More than anything, what this new GM would need to do is to be able to walk onto a sandlot anywhere in the world and identify talent. Now, do they have to be a ground-level scout? No, but some experience in the field wouldn't hurt. Do they also need to have and exhibit a razor-sharp understanding of what it means to succeed in the major leagues? Because there is a difference between what it takes to get into professional baseball at the lowest level, which is what amateur scouting is, and what it takes to go just from AAA to the bigs. Nothing else, just that one step. And then from there, what it takes to be in the bigs, and as anybody who's actually in the bigs will attest, to stay there is the hardest part. Call that the Jack Sawinski factor. Got there, blew it up for a year, can't find a way to stay there. Well, actually, he is staying there, but that's because he's playing for the Pirates. And Cherington doesn't know how to identify hitting, so there's no competition around Jack. Be able to identify talent. Hitting, pitching, defending, character is a talent. Be able to do that. Have that be your primary trait. Have that be the thing that is in Boldface, all capital letters at the top of your resume. Now, before anybody interprets this as some sort of shot at analytics, you'd better be equipped to navigate analytics, but you need to keep them in context. They are additional information. They are not the driving force. They do not replace scouting. They do not and cannot replace the ability to walk onto that sandlot. The more distant you become as an evaluator from what the eyes are showing, the more likely you are to make massive mistakes. I will retell the story here of my favorite scout in the American League, who in the first spring after Henry Davis was drafted number 1 overall, was watching him with me from the stands in Bradenton before a Grapefruit League game, and asked me in a tone that suggested I should have been going along with him, what did they see in him? And I'm like, what? He's Henry Davis. He's, I don't know that Henry was consensus number 1 at the time, but Henry was a pretty common expectation to be that guy. And he goes, yeah, we wouldn't have touched him. Now, he said a lot more after that, and I'm not going to share it. I really, really like Henry. I really respect him. Great kid, works as hard as anybody. But that was the first moment in sitting next to this gentleman. I've known him for a long time, where I thought, whoa, man, are you losing it? Do you hear what you're saying? This is a number 1 overall pick. My friends, everything he told me played out exactly the way he said. And I, in a way, because I tease him via text, I hate you for this. And he's like, for what? I go, for being right all the time. And I just get an LOL back. And I'm thinking to myself, here's this guy just sitting with me. And there's all this gigantic apparatus of statistical intelligence and everything that Charrington's put all this money into. And I'm sitting next to somebody who totally nailed this. And by the way, has nailed guys for the better as well. He's not just showing up there to trash anybody. That's what's needed. Find that guy. Get yourself an analytics department. It doesn't have to be the size of Amazon or Apple, but, get one. But yeah, put someone like this in charge. When we come back, J1Q.
This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern, that's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragecheck.org. That's gunstoragecheck.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Today's J1Q comes from a particularly tortured soul in Paul, who asks, DK, I don't know how to research this, but how many times has one of the Pirates' pitchers done well early in the game? There's some life on offense, only to not score, like, for example, bases loaded, 1 out, no runs. Does the pitcher who was doing well go back out and immediately surrender runs? That and all of this team's taken third strikes are the things that drive me and my dogs nuts. I yell at the TV, and the dogs don't like it either. Fantastic. Just fantastic. Paul, I love you, man, and I would probably love your dogs, too. Here's what I don't love. I don't love when something that is very, very simple gets obfuscated. There's my 10-cent word for this early in the morning. That's what this is. We can talk. This is kind of like, for me, the Mitch Keller conversation. Talking about Mitch is just talking about the wrong thing. This team can't hit. That is the problem. It's not that the pitcher goes back out and gives up runs. It's not that the pitcher loses the confidence. It's not the pitcher anything. The team pitched fine up until recently. The team was actually pretty good at pitching until recently. I can't say with certainty the extent to which the horrific offense contributed to that, but I'm sure that it did. These are symptoms. What I try to look for are causes. The reason that the team stinks is that the team can't hit. The reason that the team can't hit is because the general manager can't identify or develop or instruct hitters. And on top of all that, the reason the GM is still here is because the owner has to date refused to fire him for reasons that, well, they probably aren't very good. That's what this is about. That's why doing this show makes me crazy, because what I do is I'll look at a subject like the one you brought up, and all I do is remember the Kevin Bacon game where you'd have to pick X number of degrees of something that connects to Kevin Bacon, the actor? That's what I do with everything. I Kevin Bacon everything right back to the same subject, because to me, that's the origin point of all of it. This owner has created an environment that has no accountability to it. Not some accountability, not enough accountability, no accountability other than for one individual in the calendar year 2025, that was Derek Shelton. And when you have a scene that's as ugly as this one, that's on the owner. Never lose sight of that. That's on the owner. I appreciate hearing from you, Paul. I appreciate de facto hearing from your dogs. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Pirates. We're going to be back with another one of these on Monday.